Birth of Manhattan's Elite, Seasons 1 and 2. When The Real Housewives of New York City premiered in 2008, it wasn't just another reality show, it was a peek behind the penthouses, charity galas, and social hierarchies of Manhattan's elite. We were invited into a world of privilege where money wasn't just spent, it was displayed. The original cast became instant icons. Bethenny Frankel, the sharp-tongued hustler trying to make it big, Jill Zarin, the social butterfly with a Rolodex full of Manhattans, who's who, Luann de Lesseps, the self-proclaimed countess obsessed with etiquette and status, Ramona Singer, the unapologetically bold businesswoman who always said what everyone else was thinking, Alex McCord, the Brooklyn outsider with social ambitions, and later, Kelly Benjamin, the model-turned-socialite who brought her own brand of chaos. From the very first episode, the show established itself as more than just champagne lunches and designer labels. It was about climbing the social ladder, maintaining appearances, and the constant dance between envy and friendship. Bethenny, struggling to break into the business world with her natural food brand, quickly became the relatable underdog in a world full of privilege. Her hustle and humor contrasted perfectly with the more polished lives of women like Luann, who couldn't resist reminding everyone of her title and her belief that money can't buy you class. But beneath the charity events and Hamptons vacations, tensions brewed. Ramona's unfiltered honesty often clashed with Jill's controlling nature, while Alex's attempts to be accepted by the Manhattan crowd created awkward, unforgettable moments. Her husband Simon became infamous for his constant appearances, a running joke that highlighted just how different their world was from the others. And through it all, Bethenny and Jill formed a close bond, a friendship that would later define and destroy the group dynamic. By season 2, the show found its rhythm. The women's friendships deepened, but so did the drama. Bethenny's career began to take off, and Luann's marriage to the Count started to show cracks. Jill and Ramona continued their dance of frenemies, one moment toasting at a charity event, the next throwing shade over dinner. And then came Kelly Benjamin, the glamorous wildcard who didn't quite fit in. Her arrival brought energy, confusion, and a little bit of chaos, setting the stage for the emotional fireworks that would soon explode. The first 2 seasons weren't just about showcasing wealth. They defined what the Real Housewives of New York City would become. A witty, unfiltered look at ambition, ego, and female friendship in one of the most competitive cities in the world. It was funny, dramatic, and deeply addictive. And it was only the beginning. Scandals, status, and the fall of friendships, seasons 3 and 4. By the time The Real Housewives of New York City hit season 3, things were no longer about social climbing and fancy parties. They were about betrayal, rivalry, and emotional explosions. The friendship between Bethenny Frankel and Jill Zarin, once the heart of the show, began to crumble in spectacular fashion. Bethenny's life was changing fast. Her skinny girl brand was taking off. Her romance with Jason Hoppy was blossoming. And her career was finally giving her everything she'd fought for. But as Bethenny's world expanded, Jill's began to close in. She felt left behind, excluded from her friend's new success, and soon that hurt turned into resentment. What started as small tension grew into a full-blown Cold War that dominated the season. Meanwhile, Ramona Singer continued to be her unfiltered self, throwing wine, insults, and occasional compliments with equal intensity. Luann de Lesseps, now divorced, leaned in to her countess persona harder than ever, reminding everyone that money can't buy you class. Alex McCord was growing bolder, speaking up more, and trying to earn respect among the group. And then there was Kelly Benjamin, whose eccentric energy would lead to one of the most iconic reality TV meltdowns of all time. Everything reached its breaking point on the now legendary Scary Island trip. What was supposed to be a relaxing getaway turned into chaos when Kelly spiraled into paranoia, accusing Bethenny of being a cook, not a chef, and rambling about people trying to kill her. The women sat in stunned silence as Kelly unraveled, creating one of the most unforgettable moments in Bravo history. By the end of season 3, friendships were in ruins. Jill's attempts to reconcile with Bethenny fell flat, resulting in an awkward confrontation that became instantly iconic. And when Bethenny eventually left the show after the season, it marked the end of an era. Season 4 introduced new energy. Sonja Morgan officially joined the cast, instantly becoming a fan favorite with her mix of humor, charm, and occasional chaos. Her past as a former Morgan wife gave her credibility, but her eccentric lifestyle and love of champagne made her endlessly relatable. Without Bethenny, the tone shifted. Jill tried to regain her power, Ramona took center stage as the loudest voice in the room, and Luann found love again with her boyfriend Jacques. Alex continued to stir things up, and Kelly, though still eccentric, faded slightly into the background after her breakdown. By the end of season 4, the friendships were fractured, the energy darker, and the original magic slightly dimmed. Still, the Real Housewives of New York City had evolved. What began as a peek into Manhattan society was now a full-blown soap opera of friendship, ego, and survival. The Changing Faces of the Upper East Side, seasons 5 and 6. By the time The Real Housewives of New York City reached its 5th season, the show had gone through a full transformation. The original lineup that helped define its early identity, with Jill Zarini, Kelly Bensimon, and Alex McCord stirring the pot, was gone. In their place came a new trio of personalities that would bring a different kind of drama to the Upper East Side: Carol Radziwill, Heather Thompson, and Aviva Drescher. Carol was immediately the cool, calm counterbalance to the chaos, a journalist, author, and widow of a Kennedy family member. Her dry humor and unbothered attitude gave fans a break from the high-pitched shouting of previous seasons. Heather, on the other hand, brought hustle and grit. A businesswoman who founded her own shapewear brand, she was confident, outspoken, and quick to speak her mind, especially when Ramona Singer, the show's reigning queen of confrontation, got under her skin. And then there was Aviva, elegant, well-spoken, and deeply anxious. She wanted to present herself as polished and proper, but underneath it all, she was wound tighter than anyone realized. Season 5 felt like the start of a new era. The ladies took a trip to St. Bart's that would become one of the show's most memorable getaways. What began as a glamorous escape quickly descended into whispers, eye rolls, and accusations, especially when Luann de Lesseps was caught in a rumor about a mysterious night with a man named Thomas, the infamous pirate. Meanwhile, Sonia Morgan's financial struggles became more visible, her eccentric behavior turning her from socialite to lovable chaos agent. Ramona, as always, was in the middle of every argument, managing to both offend and entertain everyone around her with her unfiltered outbursts. The drama rolled straight into season 6, which saw the introduction of Kristen Taekman, a model and mother who fit seamlessly into the mix, charming at first, but soon discovering that surviving in this circle required a thick skin. Tension simmered between nearly everyone. Heather butted heads with Aviva over honesty and loyalty. Ramona's marriage began to publicly unravel, and Sonia drifted further into her own unpredictable behavior. But nothing defined these 2 seasons quite like Aviva's explosive breakdown in the finale. After being accused of faking her illnesses and lying about her medical conditions, she reached her limit. In one of reality TV's most shocking moments, she ripped off her prosthetic leg and slammed it onto the restaurant table, declaring, "The only thing fake about me is this." The room went silent, jaws dropped, and history was made. That moment instantly entered the Housewives Hall of Fame. Absurd, dramatic, and unforgettable. By the end of season 6, the cast was fractured beyond repair. Heather was tired of the constant fighting, Carol was disillusioned by the petty feuds, and Aviva's outburst became her swan song. But one thing was clear: The Real Housewives of New York City had evolved from a show about Manhattan sophistication into something far more unpredictable. A perfect mix of humor, conflict, and over-the-top personality that kept fans hooked and talking long after the credits rolled. Divorce, meltdowns, and the return of Bethenny. Seasons 7 and 8. By the time The Real Housewives of New York City reached season 7, fans could feel that something major was missing. And then came the announcement: Bethenny Frankel was back. After a few seasons away building her skinny girl empire and navigating divorce, she returned to the franchise that made her a star. From the moment she reappeared, the energy shifted. Bethenny wasn't the scrappy underdog anymore. She was powerful, opinionated, and had no patience for nonsense. The returning cast, Ramona, Luann, Sonia, and Carol, were joined by Heather Thompson, Kristen Taekman, and new face Dorinda Medley, a glamorous widow with a signature line that quickly became iconic: "Make it nice." Dorinda's arrival brought fresh warmth and sharp wit. She'd known many of the women for years, and her mix of motherly charm and fierce temper made her instantly memorable. Season 7 revolved around shifting alliances. Ramona was newly single after her marriage to Mario imploded, trying to rediscover herself while clashing with almost everyone, spiraling financially and emotionally, trying to launch her own line of Prosecco, something Bethenny saw as an imitation of her skinny girl brand, leading to a feud that blurred the line between friendship and business. Luann, still trying to reinvent herself post-Countess title, introduced her new boyfriend to the group, which immediately stirred gossip. And then there was Carol, who shocked everyone by starting a romance with Adam, the much younger personal chef who used to work for Luann. The age gap and family connections created plenty of awkward tension. But the drama that defined Season 7 was deeply personal. Bethenny's divorce and custody battles were taking a toll, Dorinda was grieving her late husband while trying to navigate love again, and Ramona, for all her bravado, showed cracks of vulnerability that audiences hadn't seen before. The season's emotional honesty, mixed with its usual chaos, made it one of the most balanced and compelling in years. Then came Season 8, and with it, even more fireworks. Heather and Kristen exited, making room for Jules Weinstein, a new housewife whose elegant appearance masked a struggle with an eating disorder. Something that became painfully clear as the season progressed. The dynamics quickly grew more volatile. Luann's engagement to Tom D'Agostino, a man with romantic history with both Sonia and Ramona, sent shockwaves through the group. Everyone, especially Bethenny, was skeptical. And then came the scandal that would define the season. Bethenny received photographic proof that Tom had been unfaithful to Luann, kissing another woman at a hotel bar just days after their engagement party. It led to one of the most uncomfortable and unforgettable confrontations in Housewives history. Bethenny, torn between loyalty and honesty, broke the news to Luann, who shockingly chose to stay with Tom. The fallout left the group divided and the audience stunned. Meanwhile, Dorinda's attempts to keep the peace often blew up in her face, her legendary drunken outbursts, clip, 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 cementing her as a fan favorite. And Sonia's eccentric behavior continued to escalate, blurring the line between comedy and concern. By the end of Season 8, friendships were shattered, secrets were exposed, and the glamorous facade of New York's elite seemed thinner than ever. What started as a show about socialites and soirees had become a raw, emotional study of loyalty, love, and betrayal, all wrapped in designer dresses and champagne glasses. The Countess falls and the drama explodes. Seasons 9 and 10. If The Real Housewives of New York City had already proven itself to be dramatic, Seasons 9 and 10 took that chaos and turned it into art. These were the golden years, so a perfect mix of outrageous behavior, genuine emotion, and iconic reality TV moments that would define the franchise for years to come. Season 9 opened with the fallout from Luann's decision to stay with Tom D'Agostino. The other women were skeptical, and frankly, who could blame them? The man's reputation was already shaky, but Luann was determined to prove everyone wrong. She insisted her relationship was solid and that love would conquer all. Spoiler alert, it didn't. The season quickly became a masterclass in tension. Ramona and Bethenny's friendship was still fractured, with years of built-up resentment spilling into every conversation. Carol and Adam's relationship started to crack, and Sonia, as always, was in her own world, trying to get her townhouse in order and navigating life after losing her fortune.
Like crazy.
We
I wish. Well, not really.
Dorinda was caught in the middle of everyone's arguments, but even she couldn't keep things civil for long, especially after a few too many martinis. And then came one of the show's most unforgettable trips, Mexico. What started as a tequila-tasting getaway turned into pure, unfiltered chaos. Bethenny, promoting her skinny girl brand, hosted the group, but alcohol and old grudges turned paradise into a war zone. Dorinda and Sonia screamed at each other over slights no one could remember. Ramona and Bethenny rehashed every old wound, and Tinsley Mortimer, a former socialite trying to rebuild her life after a public arrest, found herself questioning why she joined this circus in the first place. Still, amidst all the madness, there were moments of genuine bonding. For all their flaws, these women somehow always found their way back together. By season 10, the cracks became canyons. Luann's marriage to Tom imploded after just 7 months, leading to her very public fall from grace. Her arrest in Palm Beach for disorderly intoxication became headline news, and a storyline the show couldn't ignore. Watching Luann go from countess to convict and back again was as heartbreaking as it was surreal. She tried to rebuild herself through rehab and self-reflection, but the rest of the group wasn't always sympathetic. Dorinda, especially, took issue with Luann's newfound self-righteousness, leading to one of the show's most quoted fights, the Giovanni incident. Meanwhile, Bethenny and Carol's friendship completely unraveled. What began as mutual respect turned into one of the most brutal emotional feuds the series had ever seen. Their arguments were raw, personal, and painful to watch. Bethenny accused Carol of changing, while Carol fired back that Bethenny was manipulative and toxic. The tension was so heavy that by the reunion, the two could barely look at each other. Tinsley tried to stay out of the chaos, focusing on her relationship with Scott, but even that had its ups and downs. Sonia continued to entertain with her unfiltered honesty and unpredictable antics, often straddling the line between hilarious and heartbreaking. Ramona was, as always, the ultimate wild card. One moment apologizing, the next moment exploding in someone's face. Seasons 9 and 10 felt like peak Housewives. Outrageous parties, shocking betrayals, and moments that perfectly captured why fans loved the show. Beneath the glitz and gossip were real stories of women trying, and often failing, to hold it all together in a city that never stops judging. By the end of season 10, long-standing friendships had disintegrated, reputations were in ruins, and the Countess was still trying to find her footing. But one thing was clear, New York wasn't slowing down. The next era would bring even more chaos, heartbreak, and reinvention. A city in turmoil. Seasons 11 and 12. By the time The Real Housewives of New York City entered season 11, the show had officially become a cultural phenomenon, and with that fame came even higher levels of drama, emotion, and chaos. The women were older, and in some cases more broken than ever. What once felt like a glittery look into Manhattan high society had transformed into a raw, sometimes heartbreaking, sometimes hilarious portrait of women trying to navigate love, loss, and reinvention under the blinding lights of reality TV. Season 11 picked up with the fallout from Luann de Lesseps' arrest and rehab journey. After publicly hitting rock bottom, Luann reemerged with a new outlook on life and a new career as a cabaret performer. Her show, Countess and Friends, became both a punchline and a lifeline. While she was proud of her comeback, her castmates couldn't help but roll their eyes at her ego. Dorinda especially couldn't stand what she saw as Luann's self-absorbed attitude. Their friendship, once solid, completely imploded after Dorinda's drunken heckle. Giovanni became Housewives' legend. Meanwhile, Bethenny was dealing with her own heartbreak. Her on-again, off-again boyfriend, Dennis Shields, passed away unexpectedly, leaving her devastated. Viewers saw a rawer side of Bethenny than ever before. One that wasn't just sharp-tongued and confident, but deeply wounded. Ramona continued her post-divorce single life, throwing herself into dating and business, though her lack of empathy and impulsive behavior kept her at the center of conflict. Sonia Morgan, still clinging to the glamour of her past life, provided much-needed comic relief. Between talking to her townhouse and making questionable business decisions, she became the lovable, eccentric heart of the show. Tinsley Mortimer, meanwhile, tried to figure out what she really wanted, torn between her long-distance relationship with Scott and her desire for independence. And just when the show felt like it couldn't handle any more emotional weight, Season 11 ended with one of the most shocking moments in RHONY history, Bethenny walking away. After years of being the show's emotional center and sharpest voice, she decided to leave for good. Her exit felt like the end of an era. Season 12 opened with a huge question mark. Could the show survive without Bethenny? The short answer, yes, but not without chaos. The dynamic shifted instantly. The cast now consisted of Ramona, Luann, Sonia, Dorinda, Tinsley, and newcomer Leah McSweeney, a fiery, unapologetic businesswoman who brought a downtown energy the show hadn't seen before. Leah was raw, outspoken, and unafraid to challenge the veterans, especially Ramona, whose socialite queen persona clashed with Leah's no-filter attitude. This season was wild from the start. Luann continued to push her cabaret career while trying to stay sober, often clashing with Dorinda, whose own drinking began spiraling out of control. Their friendship became toxic, a painful reflection of two women at very different stages of denial and self-discovery. Dorinda's biting comments and explosive temper reached new heights, culminating in her infamous line to Tinsley, "Clip. You're a liar." Tinsley, after years of struggling to fit in, finally found her happy ending. she got engaged to Scott and left the show mid-season, packing up her bags and heading to Chicago. Her departure marked another turning point, a farewell to one of the few women who still believed in fairy tale endings. Leah's wild antics, from drunken tiki torches to throwing ravioli, made her a fan favorite and injected a much-needed spark into the show. She represented a new kind of New Yorker, unfiltered, rebellious, and unwilling to conform to Upper East Side expectations, but the season's tone also felt heavier. Dorinda's drinking, Luann's self-absorption, and Ramona's constant lack of accountability turned every dinner into a battleground. By the finale, it was clear the Real Housewives of New York was at a crossroads. Dorinda's rage had reached its breaking point, leading to her firing after the season ended. Fans loved her, but the emotional weight she carried had darkened the tone of the show. The women were exhausted, and so was New York itself. Seasons 11 and 12 captured a raw, unfiltered kind of reality TV magic, messy, emotional, and brutally honest. Gone were the picture-perfect parties and polite society gossip. What remained were women trying to hold themselves together while everything around them, fame, friendships, and even sobriety, crumbled. The Fall and the Rebirth, seasons 13 and 14. By the time The Real Housewives of New York City hit its 13th season, the cracks that had been forming for years finally split wide open. The show that once defined Bravo's brand of sharp, champagne-fueled chaos was in trouble, and everyone could feel it. Season 13 began under unusual circumstances. The world was still grappling with the pandemic, and for a show built on crowded parties and extravagant social events, that isolation hit hard. The city was quieter, the energy was off, and the cast itself was more divided than ever. With Bethenny gone, and Dorinda fired after her explosive behavior in Season 12, the lineup now featured Ramona Singer, Luann de Lesseps, Sonia Morgan, Leah McSweeney, and newcomer Ebony K. Williams, the show's first black housewife. Ebony's arrival was long overdue. She was intelligent, outspoken, and unafraid to discuss race, privilege, and class in a franchise that had largely ignored those issues. But her presence also highlighted how much RHONY had changed. The conversation shifted from lighthearted bickering to serious social commentary, and not everyone was ready for it. Ramona, especially, clashed with Ebony over her directness, leading to uncomfortable and often cringeworthy confrontations about race and ignorance. While Ebony tried to have real necessary conversations, Ramona and Luann struggled to adapt. Sonia, ever the lovable wildcard, often found herself caught in the middle, oscillating between comic relief and moments of genuine sadness as she wrestled with her loneliness and fading wealth. Leah, on the other hand, was dealing with her grandmother's illness and her own spiritual awakening, but her temper and unpredictability kept her from connecting deeply with the group. The season never quite found its rhythm. The balance between serious social topics and Housewives-level entertainment was hard to maintain. Viewers felt the disconnect, and so did Bravo. For the first time in RHONY history, the reunion was canceled, a shocking move that signaled just how far things had gone off the rails. It wasn't just a bad season, it was the end of an era. And so, after 13 seasons, The Real Housewives of New York City, as fans knew, it came to an abrupt halt. But New York never stays down for long, and neither did Bravo. Enter Season 14, The Reboot. In 2023, Bravo made the bold decision to completely reimagine the series from the ground up. A brand new cast of 6 women stepped into the spotlight, ready to redefine what it meant to be a real housewife in modern Manhattan. Gone were the days of Ramona's turtle time and Sonia's toaster ovens. This was a fresh start for a new generation. The reboot introduced Sai De Silva, a stylish influencer and mother with a sharp sense of humor, Uba Hassan, a charismatic model and businesswoman whose infectious energy lit up every room, Erin Leachy, a real estate agent and mom who prided herself on being both polished and pragmatic, Jenna Lyons, former creative director of J. Crew, a fashion icon with a magnetic presence and a deeply personal story, Brynn Whitfield, a flirty, witty PR consultant who became an instant fan favorite, and Jessel Tank, a brand consultant navigating motherhood and marriage with refreshing honesty. From the very first episode, it was clear this wasn't the old RHONY, but it still had the heart of the city. The drama came from personality clashes and insecurities rather than history and bitterness. The women argued about Fashion Week invitations, chaotic dinner parties, and who was truly authentic, but underneath it all was a sense of freshness and relatability the show had been missing. Jenna Lyons quickly became the breakout star. Her openness about her sexuality, her career, and her vulnerabilities made her one of the most unique housewives the franchise had ever seen. Meanwhile, Bryn's playful charm, Ubah's fiery energy, and Jessel's unfiltered honesty made every scene unpredictable. The reboot didn't try to copy the old magic, it reinvented it. The humor was subtler, the conflicts more grounded, and the conversations more reflective of modern New York. Critics praised the show for feeling contemporary and real, while longtime fans found themselves slowly warming to this new generation of housewives who traded martini fights for heartfelt confessions and authentic friendships. By the end of season 14, it was clear. The Real Housewives of New York City had survived its darkest chapter and evolved into something new. It wasn't just about elite socialites anymore. It was about ambitious, complex women navigating love, identity, and success in the city that never sleeps. From the elegance of the early years to the emotional chaos of its middle seasons, and now the sleek, modern energy of the reboot, The Real Housewives of New York has captured the evolution of New York itself, messy, bold, and always reinventing. And if history has taught us anything, it's that this city, and its housewives, always find a way to come back stronger than ever. From socialites sipping cocktails on the Upper East Side to cabaret comebacks and leg-throwing chaos, The Real Housewives of New York City has given us everything: glamour, heartbreak, laughter, and legendary one-liners that'll live forever in Bravo history. It's more than just a reality show. It's a story about reinvention, resilience, and what it means to survive in a city that never sleeps. Whether it's Bethenny building an empire, Sonia living in her past glory, or Luann reinventing herself yet again. These women have proven that no matter how many times life knocks them down, they always come back swinging. And usually with a martini in hand. If you've loved revisiting this wild journey through every friendship, feud, and unforgettable meltdown, hit that like button, subscribe for more iconic TV deep dives, and comment below. Which New York housewife do you think defined the series the most? Because in this city, and on this show, the drama never really ends. We'll see you in the next one.